Would someone to call the roll? I can take this too. All right, so Mr. Watson.
Here.
Let's see. All right, Ms. Buchanan.
Right.
Ms. Seats, Mrs.
Present.
Seats. Mrs. Crowder.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor, present. All right, so we have a quorum. So this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, and it's not to be considered a public community meeting. There's time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda item D. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, may I have a motion for the approval of today's agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Seats.
Second.
Supported by Mrs. Crowder. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns about the agenda? I know, Mrs. Gale, you have an item of discussion concerning closed session. We just need to make sure that it's legal to go into closed session.
I would like to request a closed session according to Article 0167.2, closed session of the Neola policies, Section 8, to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against, or to consider a periodic personnel evaluation of a public officer, staff member, or individual agent if the named person requests a closed hearing.
So you mentioned that that person has to request that. So that's
No.
part of the OMA.
Okay, this would be me requesting it. It's up to the board to vote or not vote.
Well, no, the board can't break the law. So the board has to follow the Open Meetings Act. So I have the law in my hand, and there are, several purposes for the Open Meetings Act to go into closed session. And I think one is like if a employee has a wish to go into closed session based on complaints and things like that, then it's their choice. There's also, I just need to find it right quick. All right, so Section 8A, it also permits closed sessions to hear complaints or charges. Do we have complaints and charges brought against an employee or board member? So is this a complaint or charge brought against an employee or a board member?
Against an employee.
So it's not a complaint and disciplinary action? Because then that would put it in the hands of the employee.
Which section are you reading from, just so I can?
Yep, so this is the Open Meetings Act. I'll show this to everyone. This is from Michigan Association of School Boards. This is the state law, right? So this is the legitimate purposes for closed meetings. So we have to follow that. Even though we have a board policy, the board policy dictates the same thing for a closed meeting. So the question again is this a complaint or disciplinary action? If it is, the employee has the right to go into a closed session, but it's the employee's right. If Section 8A, it also permits a closed session to hear complaints or charges brought against an employee or a board member.
Right, so the second section of what I read, or to hear complaints or charges brought against, not a board member.
Yeah, I'm just saying employee or board
Correct.
member. Okay, so may I have a motion to, well, we don't need to go in closed session now, but may I have a motion to add that to the agenda, a closed session item? And when does the board want to take this item into closed session? Do we want to do it at the end of business or before other? It's up to the board.
I would like to do after.
Before,
After we're done.
yeah.
Okay.
before other.
Okay. So we're gonna put it right before other, and we'll go into closed session. And that's gonna be for section 8A of the Open Meetings Act, all right? So we had a motion, we had a second, we altered the agenda. Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, yes. Mrs. Crowder,
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Mrs. Seats.
Yes.
I think I got everyone. All right, so on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come up for public participation? If so, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. All right, on to the approval of the minutes from January 14th, 2020, a regular board session, and January 25th, 2020, a board retreat. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes mentioned?
So moved.
All right, so moved by Mr. Watson, supported by Vice President Crowder. Just give me 1 second. Mr. Taylor, yes. Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan,
Yeah.
Mrs. Seats,
Yes.
Vice President.
Yes.
All right, on to board business. Community Engagement Advisory Committee update. Denise, if there are any?
There's always updates, oh gosh. Always updates. The last time we met as a committee, the CAC committee, was in January, again, the first meeting in January. So and at that meeting, there are still assessments that we're doing, okay? So there are each subcommittees, there's 4 subcommittees, and, there's finance, there's operations, there's, academics. So the assessments, we're still working on those. We've been asked by Joyce Parker to come up with like 3 to 5 priorities that we think, based on your committee, that we have a format, we have a template, that we're gonna be using this information, putting this information on. Then still, we're just in a lot of information gathering mode. We are still there. So we had a conference call last night in place of our our monthly meeting, because there's just so much that has to be done within the subcommittees. So we didn't meet last night as a whole. That will be again March, which is usually the first Monday in March. We'll meet again, which is March 2nd. We're plugging along. We are getting our information together. So it's just something that does take a little bit more time. And in the small amount of time that we have to do this is a lot of work. Okay, a lot of work. I'm happy to be here to do it. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you. I know that April is our final session for the advisory committee. And I know that my guess is in March, you guys are probably going to bring something to the board, a recommendation
Yes.
from all that work.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, on to Neola Policy 7300. And I think the discussion item was based on Mr. Watson's statements that we should add keep facilities and operations. So Mr. Watson, I'll chime in ask you to chime in so we can make that addition to this policy. That's why we brought it back.
Thank you, President Taylor. As I look at this, it says basically that I'm assuming that the Neola policy recommends that it comes to finance, and our policy currently says it comes to the facilities. And I would say to keep it that way. And then the recommendation from the operations committee then comes to finance and then be vetted from a recommendation standpoint. So all the gathering, the fact gathering and things could be done with the facilities. And then that information given to finance, who then presents it for a final board approval, up or down.
So you're stating just keep it as is,
Yes,
all right? And then
In operation.
in operations.
correct,
And then when the recommendation is made from operation, it will be given to finance.
correct.
I'll type something up like that and then make sure you see it.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding policy 7300? All right. I got Mr. Bradley. Mr. Bradley, did you have any discussion regarding the policy 7300? We're just leaving it as is. And that was, remember that facilities and operations would take care of those items. And then if there was a bid or et cetera, it would be deferred to finance for final approval.
I'm not having discussion.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go over Mrs. Robinson's items. She told me she wasn't gonna be here when we met yesterday. And so, first, curriculum and instruction subcommittee, I was on the phone, but if I could defer to Vice President just to give an update, because I got on the phone probably kind of like the last minute for that meeting.
Don't ball now.
All right, in our curriculum meeting, we reviewed the read by third grade law, which is third graders who are more than one grade level behind, beginning with the 2019-2020 school year, may repeat third grade. We discussed the tutoring program funded by the Benton Harbor Education Foundation, citing board approval, which will tutor our third graders to help them meet their goals. Those were the main issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, so there are 2 staff reports tonight, or 3. And I think the pre-Labor Day, I know we talked about that as well. Did that need approval today, or was that for next week? We may be able to hold off, so I'll
What
just.
was that for?
This is a pre-Labor Day start, so we're gonna open that up. And so the pre-Labor Day start in the state of Michigan, you can ask for a waiver to start school early, a week early. And so Baron Risa is conferring with all the districts to say, hey, let's go in a partnership and just make this statement to say, hey, we want to start a week early. But even if we make this recommendation with them, it does not mean we have to do this. We're just supporting their cause, right? And I think there are, as I speak, 11 districts that have come aboard to say they wanted to start a week before Labor Day. You would start earlier, the students would get out earlier as well, be able to complete tests and things like that a lot earlier. So it's just an idea. Our support today does not mean that the district has to do that, right? But it just goes to the state level to ask for that waiver.
So when they say starting earlier, getting out later, they start a week early, and how much later are they gonna?
So if you start a week earlier, I think the assumption is you're gonna get out a week earlier, right? You get out earlier. Like, for example, our new superintendent, Wayne Westland, they start before Labor Day. So there are a lot of districts in the states that have opted to do so.
Is there a benefit to that?
Yeah, it's on the, let me look at this here. So I'll just read it. So RISA is submitting a countywide waiver to MDE to start school prior to Labor Day and is soliciting support from local districts. If MDE approves the waiver, participation in pre-Labor Day start will be an individual school district's decision. The committee recommends that school districts interested in a pre-Labor Day start in 2021, or in a future year begin no sooner than 1 week prior to Labor Day, August 31st, 2020. The district is considering this for 2021-2022 school year and will share a letter of support if RESA is approved. So advantages and concerns. Advantages. Michigan is one of only 3 states to have a mandatory school start date. Approximately, trying to read this, 2/3 of Michigan counties have districts that utilize the waiver. This would get students out for the summer a week earlier. If there were snow days, the students would be out the first or second week of June. Final exams may be able to be given before winter break in December, making for a more succinct, split in semesters. And students would have more instructional time prior to state assessments. Students and staff would have a mandatory 4-day Labor Day break. And the concerns. So those were your advantages. The concerns, districts should find out how the teachers union feel about it. Survey the community. Marion RESA conducted a survey and found that 51% of its parents and guardians were in favor, and 36% did not have an opinion on the change. And the last concern is the ability to vacation around Labor Day are a perk for some parents, and they want to keep it. So that's it. I mean, so with this support, does not mean that we have to go into a pre-Labor Day or before Labor Day start, but we just have to look at all the pros and cons. Yes,
And
sir.
I was gonna say, I mean, if you, I do know, I have family that does work in the system, and they love having the longer summers. And I mean, if you also look at, Chicago starts, after Labor Day. So I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to it, but I think also with us being, that's why Michigan did it in the first place, was because of the tourism. So I mean, that's my main concern. There's tourism. I know we go into the summer a little bit longer, but I mean, you have the extra week in the summer, to kind of just finish up everything and enjoy family on Labor Day.
Yes, ma'am.
So if this is something we decide to do, then it would go into effect, you said 2021 or something like that?
I think they're doing it for 2021, 2022.
It'd be interesting to see how many school districts are doing this. We don't want to be, if you don't do something, then you're looked upon as not being, there you go, being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Uniform.
There we go. And, and not that you have to be uniform.
Correct.
I'm just throwing that out there,
I think for me, the opinion would be about education. So if our students are already behind the 8 ball, right? We got 3rd graders behind, we got 11th graders that are not meeting the PSAT portion. I think that's something to look at. So it's not about the grown-up in this case, it's about how can you give more introduction of learning to the students who are already behind. So if we need a catch up, sometimes you have to think about that too. I mean, some places are doing year round, and that may be beneficial for the district. That's something the board just has to look at when we do our vision and mission, right? Because sometimes even though we want our vacations and things like that, we really want our students to do better. So that's a standpoint too, right? Just to look at.
Vacations can be deemed educational as well.
You got it.
Yeah.
He's done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to say that, I'm just saying it's for school districts like us who, we're not meeting those state standards yet, right? So we kind of need to put in a lot of work. And I remember, Lou, remember Dr. Sherwood Allen when he had the Saturday school.
I remember I was working.
Yeah, and when he had the Saturday school, our test data beat everybody in this county.
Yeah.
You see, that's a difference. So you got to think about how to really make this thing work.
Yeah.
So it did work.
Mhm.
All right, so any other questions, comments?
Yeah, the committee recognizes that some school districts may implement a pre-Labor Day start for the 2020-21 school year, while others may delay implementation to a future school year or choose not to participate. So we just let them know that we're willing to go along with whatever
That's it.
the
Yeah.
area goes along with.
We don't have to make the decision. We're just saying we're in support of you.
Exactly.
You
Getting
can
that
opt
way.
in anytime you choose.
You got it. And so Susan, I think this, I don't know about the timeline. what was the timeline, Vice President?
Nah, this one doesn't have a timeline.
So-
Oh, wait a minute, end of January.
Okay,
Each school district superintendent submit a letter of interest to Kevin Iris by the end of January, so it's now.
okay. So we'll do that tonight if it's okay with the board because of the time. So they allowed us some extra time. All right, so may I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 1, pre-Labor Day start? So moved by Vice President Crowder, supported by Mr. Matthew. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we call the roll? Please call the roll.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Vice President Crowder, yes. Lou Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Wiley Six.
Yes.
Matthew Bradley,
Yes.
Darren Watson.
Yes.
All
They
right.
have a quorum.
So motion passes. Staff report number 2, I think based on this letterhead needs to be approved tonight. And that's the tutoring program, which Vice President Crowder discussed in the curriculum committee. And I'll read that as well. So the tutoring program is funded by the Benton Harbor Educational Foundation, which is our foundation for our school district. The focus will be on third graders who are on the low end of performance. The program will be held at the International Academy at Hull. Reading would be the subject area covered due to the third grade reading law. Tutoring sessions would last about 30 minutes. We'll be our partner will be Andrews University. They'll coordinate this with their students. The students will be chosen based on the winter NWEA scores. So when those students take that winter test, that they'll be deferred, if they're on the low end of the scale for extra tutoring. And the start date is February 24th, 2020. Benton Harbor Educational Foundation is willing to fund up to $111,000 for this program to cover all costs. So there's no cost to us. It's coming through the foundation. We could vote on this today or next week because we're still within the timeline, but
So
since
do they
it's,
here or do they go? Where do they go?
that's gonna be at the International Academy.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I think we should vote today.
yeah, because
So they
it
can
gets started,
Mhm.
yeah. All right, so I need a motion for the approval of staff report number 2.
So moved.
It's moved by
Second.
Mrs. Crowder,
Ms. Wiley.
second, and Ms. Wadley Seats, and it's second by Mr. Watson. I was looking at Mr. Watson. No, I'm looking at Watson. Watson. Yeah.
Your name, no.
Gotcha.
All right, please call the roll.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Vice President Crowder, yes. Lou Buchanan,
Yes.
Denise Wiley Six. Yes. Matthew Bradley,
Yes.
Darren Watson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
All right, so they also added the robotics field trip, but that's not until March 12th through 14th. So this is an item we can approve next week. We're not in the rush for that one, but I'll just go over it. The date of the field trip is March 12th through 14th. It's for the high school robotics team. The supervisor is Shannon Harris. We'll be having around 10 students, 4 chaperones, and they have to write an objective, right? And the objective is, how does this connect to the grade level curriculum and how does it align to district goals? And his statements were a strategy, activity, after school, and whole child focus. It provides after school activities which may include reading, math, robotics, self-esteem. We will also provide wraparound services for families from mental health to family and parent education. Oh, I think I'm reading that wrong. Yeah. That's identified in district goals. I apologize. So on this sheet, they have to fill out a field trip sheet. And those are the different goals that have to be obtained. Yeah, and so I'm trying to go down here to see. So we got 10 students, 4 chaperones. It's gonna be at Gold Lake Schools. There'll be overnight for 2 nights. Trying to see anything else. I think that's it. We have a list of the students and mentors, etc. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, for my own clarity. It says departure time 5:30 a.m. or p.m. Which one is it?
So departure time, I don't even think that's correct because it's not AM because you can't even get into the
Yeah.
pits until, I think it's 5 o'clock when the pits open. So they don't allow any school. So normally we leave from here at around 2:30
Okay,
to get to Gull Lake.
okay.
So I think that's a typo.
And then the second part of that is, it says, the estimated return time is 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. I mean, we just need for clarity purposes, just to have it in there.
It should be around 8 p.m.
Okay.
because the event gets over with about 4 o'clock, 4 to 5, and by the time you know stop and eat and come home, we normally get here about 8.
Okay.
Sometimes if we leave before everything's over with, you know, say you lose and you decide to get on the bus, sometimes we're here at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
But so it's around 8 o'clock.
Yeah, just for the purposes of clarity of the application, it should say, 5:30 p.m. or 2:30 p.m., whatever time it is. Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And so, and the students do this every year. So we've been going on these type of field trips for 14 years. The first one will be, I think, March 7th at St. Joseph High School. That's the first robotics competitions for the schools. And this is the second one. You have to get around 80 points for the state in order to go to state, right? So each competition, you're trying to gain enough points to be considered for state. And so that's why we do at least 2 competitions. So it's a lot like basketball. The gym will be filled, actually fuller than basketball. And it's just a bunch of nerds trying to compete. Yeah, because nerds make the money, right?
Yeah.
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 All right.
Intellectual student.
Yeah. I'm a nerd too, so that's why I said that. All right. So we'll bring that back up next week.
Council coaching now.
Right, exactly, absolutely.
All right, so business and finance, Mr. Johnson?
Before you go.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. On that, same sheet that talks about the free Labor Day start, also recommended for consideration, regarding the change in spring break week. Did you wanna go over that or no?
Yeah, we can go back and go over that. I didn't have that in the,
I can read it, so they'll understand. Kevin Irons received a request from Van Buren ISD to move the spring break week forward 1 week, starting in the 2021-22 school year, so 2021. Currently, the spring break for 2021-22 in Barron County is scheduled for April 4th through 8th. The request is to move the spring break week to March 28th to April 1st. Looks like 1 week prior.
Okay.
Local post-secondary institutions like Michigan College and Andrews University have expressed their willingness to move their spring break week to match countrywide school districts. Southwest Michigan College will continue to schedule their spring break week with Cass County school districts. The committee previously discussed and considered the potential conflicts of moving spring break to the 3rd week of March for the 2021 school year. The primary conflict is with the scheduling of the MHSAA Boys Basketball Tournament, which is Tuesday, March 16, 2021, regional semifinals, and Thursday, March 18, 2021, regional finals. Moving spring break to the 4th week of March for the 2020-21 school year will conflict with the Boys Basketball Tournament, Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, quarterfinals, Thursday, March 25th and 25th, March 26th, 2021, semifinals, and Saturday, March 22nd, finals. But again, what we're doing is letting them know we're considering supporting them if it is approved that it will be, the spring break is changed. It's not saying that it will be. if we support it.
All right, thank you, Vice President. On to business and finance, Mr. Johnson, business and finance. You don't have to do a subcommittee report, but just the monthly financial reports.
Thank you. We have in the packet this evening a set of 12 reports, including some new ones. We'll take a quick walk through them. The first report is the accounts payable aging report. This report is sent to Treasury each month, and you'll see at the bottom it includes actually a negative amount, a little bit unusual, but we have some credits from previous months. The next report is the year-to-date budget report. It's a summary. You can see that the district has received 45.6% of its budgeted revenue, and we've expended 34.7% of the budgeted expenditures. The next page is a more detailed version of the report. Report after that is the monthly EDEP, Enhanced Deficit Elimination Report. This next report, maybe the next page down, includes or is the report that we send to Treasury each month, as well as the aging accounts payable aging report. The next report is the investment report. This is identical to the one last month, only it includes updated date. Investments have not changed since then, so the dollar amounts are the same. On the next page, you'll see that this is a new report. It's called the Quarterly Cash and Investment Reports. It shows the cash balance beginning and ending for the month. So it would be the ending column on the far right is the ending cash balance and investment balance for each fund as of December 31. This report is recorded per Board Policy 6144. The next report, actually the next two reports, are the sinking fund reports. In the past, they were called capital projects fund reports, and they've just been retitled to sinking fund reports. The next page is a report that we had a few years ago. It's a utility report. It compares our year-to-date utility costs with that of previous years, and it does so on a water and sewerage alone basis, also on a natural gas only basis, and also on an electricity only basis. At the end of the report, it totals all three of these, so we can see year-to-date expenditures for all three categories and compare them with year-to-date expenditures for these in previous years.
So what was the finding? Are we spending more or less or what?
I'm glad to turn to that. Year-to-date for 2019, as of December 31, we spent $142,015 for those utilities. Last year at this time, we spent just under $182,000. The previous year, $134,000. So it's closer to 2017 than 2018 right now. And the final report in this set of 12 is a revised or a new format, but very similar to the last format, a vendor payment report. In the past, it was called check register, but it's really more than the check register. It includes all the checks. It also includes the automated clearinghouse or ACH payments. And like before, it includes a bank code. In this case, it has slightly different nomenclature, but the first set would be general fund. And then the check number, the vendor name, the check type, and the date, and then the dollar amount. And then near the bottom of the second page, you'll see that it has the total for this fund. On the third page, it has the total for all these. And on the fourth and final page of this report, it includes a summary by fund for all these payments. One note that this report does not yet include the EduStaff electronic payments, and we're working on getting those included as well. Be happy to respond to any other questions you may have regarding reports.
I have a question, but I think it's up a couple pages, Scott. So it was for Mr. Terry Stokes. Yeah, so some of these things are, when you're giving away $200, things like that, is that for like gas mileage or, I mean, because we don't really know what that is for, right? We know that sometimes, people, they'll drive their car, they'll pay for something, the district reimburses. So is that a reimbursement?
Employee reimbursements are processed through payroll. That way it saves the district, the cost of those checks, and so it's typically a direct deposit for those employees. They do not appear on this register. These are accounts payable payments. And I'd be happy to look up the payment for Jeff.
There you go, Jeff the Rain. One down for 161. Who's the Jeff the Rain?
Very. 161.
Is there a check number you can point me to, please?
Yes, 51138. And what's the other person's name? 51144.
$51,138
Yeah.
and $51,144. I'll be glad to look these up for you. Provide this by email.
Because that's something you guys can look at all the time, right, to ask questions, because sometimes things pop up and you're like, well, what's that? Who's that for? Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
I was just gonna make a comment and say I like the new format that they have now with it. So that's really good and easy to read.
And one more question for me, sir. I saw sinking funds, right? So I saw one at 4 mil or something, and I saw another at 6. So is the remaining 4 million? Yeah. So we have. So I think this is, I'm sorry, that's 600,000.
Right, there's two.
That's two.
The 7 and the 17. 2007 is 600,000,
Okay. And so,
and that's 2017.
so we almost have 5 mil, close to 5. Okay, in the sinking fund.
One observation. We
Yes,
do
sir.
have some encumbrances. Those are not reflected on here.
Right. Okay. All right, so if there are no other questions, we'll go to Elizabeth Gale, Human Resources. Or do you have, are you still in a committee?
Yes.
Okay. Any committee reports?
Well, see,
Okay,
because I
yes,
wasn't at the last meeting.
yes, ma'am.
That's probably gonna take-
Did you want to say something first? For our HR committee, we reviewed protocol for non-renewal of administrator and probationary teachers' contracts. We're made aware of the timelines for each contract. We reviewed FOIA, Freedom of Information Act protocols as well. We were given a list of all current teachers and staff members, which included our vacancies in the district. And I just want to compliment Ms. Gale. Everything is smooth in that HR committee, and she is fantastic getting all that stuff together. So just want to tell her she's doing a great job. Thank you.
So your guidelines, you're talking about the legal date of April 1st.
Yes.
Yeah, so for board members, you know, like when you non-renew a teacher, janitor, admin, et cetera, right? The law said it has to be by April 1st. If not, then that contract just rolls over, right? And then even with teachers, you got to do your due diligence. You can't just say, I'm going to just get rid of you. You got to have paperwork in session or in hand too as well, right? And administration is contracts. So sometimes, you know, it could be contract for a year and maybe the district wants to renew or not. All right, Mrs. Gale?
We have a list of 4 new hires since our last board meeting and 5 terminations. 2 of those are resignations and 3 of them are retirements at the end of the school year. I'm happy to read the names if you'd like. Typically, we do that before the vote.
We can do next week.
Any questions?
Could you
Three of
that? Could you go back?
If you just click it open.
3 of the retirements are actually effective at the end of the school year, but people put in their notices now, which was very kind of them.
Right there. So those are the new hires.
This is the list of new hires. These are not new positions, these are replacements for people who have left.
Is Floyd retired? No, she's a new hire in a new position. And this one is resignation and retirement.
All right, any questions for Mrs. Gill?
You know what would be good on this, Ms. Gale, would be, can I speak there?
Yes,
Oh.
ma'am.
Would be, their years of service
Years of service, we can certainly provide that.
for the retired
And,
teachers
For the retired teachers,
Or-
absolutely.
other workers.
I know one teacher, Miss Dorothy Neely, excellent teacher. I worked with her years ago. We lose some fine teachers.
Well, she's ready to retire.
Um,
She's ready to retire.
I know.
All right, thank you so much. Facilities operations, Mr. Watson, any updates?
Yeah, we met, last week, Tuesday, and met, with Mr. Boone and got updates on a lot of projects that are in, process. For example, we had the fire extinguisher inspection, scheduled for the first quarter of, this year. There are electrical upgrades, PA, new windows, and gotta read my handwriting, lettering on, so phase 1 of the press box is done. And phase 2 will be starting, it looks like in July because of the weather, just to make sure we can get those things done. There's an RFP going out for design build services at the high school for the marquee out front. That will be done, coming up real soon. There's some work being finished up on the building management system, projects that are in process. And there's still the one vacancy for the maintenance position that is still open. So that's pretty much what we kind of talked about. Just got an update on a lot of the other aspects of things that are, bids and stuff that are going out, but for the most part, just kind of business as usual as it relates to facilities.
Okay. I gotta look back, I remember, a couple of years ago, that had been in a policy, we made it where the bids come at the board table, because oftentimes you don't see it, right? So you don't know, because the law requires it sealed, right? Things like that, so you wanna make sure there's no manipulation, but not only that, we wanna be aware, because oftentimes we're not. Things are done, and then they say, well, he won the bid or she won the bid, right? So question about the marquee. We've been trying to get that fixed for, 3 years, but not the marquee, but the press box.
Mhm.
So why did we have to wait until July to complete a press box when we know that when we get into March, we got good weather, right? We get into April, we got good weather. May, June, why are we waiting till July to fix a press box? Right.
Yeah, I can ask Troy that. I didn't ask that question at that time, but like I said, the first part of it is complete. The siding, and all that being redone is done now.
Right.
Like I said, he said the lettering, we do install letters and start phase 2 in July. Again, which is the electrical upgrades, PA, the new windows and the lettering. I can get that information and give it at the next meeting.
Right, we need that follow-up because when we have our new personnel in place for the district, right? I think we can talk to, who's that, Pearson? Did Pearson do
I
that
believe
work?
it is Pearson.
And we,
Yeah.
I'm sure Pearson could say we can do that earlier than
Yeah,
July.
Pearson has got another project that they're working on for us as well, that they're looking to do relatively quick because it is the down season, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other questions from the board concerning the Facilities Operations Committee? All right, so at this time, I need a motion to go into closed session. And the reason why we're going into closed section is section 8A of the Open Meetings Act. So may I have a motion to go into closed session? So moved by Mrs. Seats,
Second.
supported by Vice President Crowder. Questions, comments, concerns before we go into closed session? All right, please call the vote.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Vice President Crowder. Denise Watley Seat,
Yes.
Matthew Bradley,
Yes.
Darren Watson.
Yes.
Closed session at 6:18. When we return, we'll go back into open. All right, may I have a motion to come back into open session at 6:39 PM?
So moved.
All right, so moved by Vice President Crowder, supported by Mr. Bradley. Please call the roll.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Vice President Crowder? Yes, oh. Lou Buchanan? Oh, yes. Denise Wiley C.
Yes.
Matthew Bradley?
Yes.
Darren Watson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passed.
All right, so we're back into open session at 6:39. We have, we're at any other items from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that some schools are getting cameras in the classroom, which is great, like the high school. And so now Hull has cameras. Would Dream Academy be getting cameras?
That I don't know. I know I think when we were getting the cameras, that was under the Safe and Security grant as well as the state police grant. And so I think those two ended last year. And so they had to spend the money. So we did get a lot of cameras, like now school just received in classroom. So I don't know. That's something that we have sinking fund money with that we could always initiate. That's a good conversation.
The reason I ask is because during one of our discipline committee, the parent said, well, they can't prove it, but no camera. What you gonna do? We have witnesses, but.
Okay, so that's something the board, we can look at. When the new superintendent gets here, I want to call a board retreat if we could at the end of the month. That way, as we get up to speed and we start talking about that vision and mission statement that Mr. Bradley was talking about, right? But we do it as a cohesive group, and so that'll be the time for us to bring up some of this ideation at that time. So under discussion items, Miss Buchanan just coming back.
Yeah, you can.
No, I just thought that was. I've never looked at the seat. I'm looking down here. But yeah, so Saturday's board retreat. It was a good retreat. So now us as board members, we all understand what's required, what's not required. Also, Attorney Brad Berneski from MASB. You guys, I gave that opinion letter to you. He's willing to even come up here like he has in the past to give the board a training as well, right? And it's normally about, I would say, an hour, but it just really gives you all the finite guidelines of what to do and what not to do. And
His
so
name was?
that's Brad Berneski.
Oh, this guy.
He's the attorney for MASB. He graduated from Waterville High School, actually. Yeah, so he's a local person. But at that meeting, I just want to preface this for the media because the media wasn't there. So the January 25th board retreat, we brought in the attorneys from Troon Law Firm to give the board legal advice as to what board members could and could not do as board members. And this is the statement for the media for me. So as you remember, former board member Patricia Russ made statements and accusations in her letter of resignation and to the press about me. So we met with the attorneys. We verified that all the suggestions and statements that I gave to former board member Rush and the entire board were correct. Board members cannot be in schools working, micromanaging in the district. They are not employees. They are board members. And board members cannot be in the buildings on a daily basis unless they have board business like Mrs. Crowder and Ms. Buchanan when they come in for their meetings or committee, et cetera. And so board policy has to also be followed based on the attorney's opinion from MASB as well for visitors. So just like any other citizens, board members are considered trespassing if we don't follow those policies. Sign in, right? Make sure you're not on the school property all the time because we don't need to be up here interfering with administration. That's the superintendent's job to take care of the day-to-day. Also, our attorneys' opinions gave opinions and recommendations, and MASB attorneys gave the opinions and recommendations. And it showed proof that I was telling the truth about former board member Patricia Rush and her violations of board policy and law. Former board member Patricia Rush's statements did not hurt me, but they hurt the integrity and image of the district. The board started to move in a positive direction before she sent her letter of resignation with the sordid statements about me and the city of Benton Harbor that went all over the state. So I just want to say thank you, board. We're one unit, we come together as a unit, and so whatever was misunderstood or not understood, we're moving forward as a board. And so you will hear no more of this from me, President Taylor. I'm just here to serve, and we all are here to serve our students, okay? Any other discussion items?
Question,
Yes.
is there any action that's required from the board in conjunction with the resignation letter that was sent?
No action by
Okay.
law, so the attorneys state that once you resign, so what happens when Dr. Rush put a date on her resignation? By law, she could have rescinded her resignation
Okay.
before March
Before March
1st.
1st. Okay,
But based on the laws, you don't have to accept anything at the board table because she gave it out, by hand, and she also stated it verbally. So there's
Okay.
nothing the board needs to do.
all right, thank you.
Also, one more discussion item, and this is for the media as well. We had a meeting with Baron Risa, myself, interim superintendent Robertson, our attorneys, and the Baron Risa board president. And we came to a agreement concerning our contracts with Baron Risa, and also our facilities and operations contract. So I just want to state here today that Baron Risa, we've been using them as a service partner since 2014. We appreciate everything that they have done for the district. I appreciate their support when we needed them as a service provider. But at this time, Benton Harbor Area School is going to go in a different direction. Our direction is to be self-sufficient with our own employees through finance, payroll, operations, et cetera. And we still have a relationship with Baron Risa, as do all districts in Berrien and Cass County. So we appreciate Baron Risa for being a good service provider to us since 2014. All right, superintendent comments or announcements, none. Board member comments, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, President Taylor. I just want to wish Lou Buchanan a happy birthday
What, tomorrow?
tomorrow.
We having a meeting tomorrow at 5:30.
She's calling a special meeting, I guess.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Good evening, board. I do apologize for my tardiness this evening. I had to work. Also want to say happy birthday to you, Miss Lou. I have nothing really to say tonight. I did, if anyone did receive the copy of the Leaderboard magazine from the state, we talked about the collaboration spaces, and I think that's something we should talk to Dr. Townsend about when he gets on board, because I have a few friends that are from out of town. They've looked and they were like, they saw some stuff and they say they would like to see us do something. So if we can do that, that'll be awesome. But other than that, I'll pass it on.
All right, yeah, I saw a collaboration space, South Haven Schools has it. It's really nice.
Okay, Mr. President, I would like to say to everyone that's here, my birthday is tomorrow, February the 5th, but you don't have to worry, because the entire month of February, I celebrate. I've been doing it for 10 years. That's my birthday. I don't mean any harm. I'm just real with mine. So if whatever you got for me, you call me up and we have a conversation. You got it at your desk, I'll come and pick it up. But don't worry, because you got the whole month to take care of me. If you didn't get paid this week, you got next week. And I would like to say to the happy lady, make sure you put my birthday in the paper. I was at Walmart and the lady, two ladies was coming down. And they said, "Oh, you that lady used to be on the radio for the last 20 years." Pat Mooney used to call me on my birthday. And so she said, "Can we have your autograph?" I said, "For real?" She said, "Yeah, because you and Pat Mooney were two stars on that radio." And I saw Pat downtown. I told him, but you know, on the real side, Miss Crowder, thanks for that tutoring program. Benton Harbor to the ones that's here, our kids need that. I was here today, and I was went to the bathroom, and our principal was down the hall, and two of the teachers was coming down from lunch. And they was coming out of the lunchroom, and they used to be running. And I looked, she said, it's not perfect, but it's getting better. So that made me feel good to know Mr. Holmes is doing something. We got to stick together with young people. I know people change, people do things. You think you know a person, you don't know that person. But we got to, I would like to say to Mr. Johnson and Ms. Gale, they're so quiet. I said, man, them are some quiet little people. You two people are so quiet. When you get home, do you yell at your... You're sweet. I like you. I like what you're doing. I like her better now since we had that meeting, because when I was taking my picture, you were nice to me and kept calling and calling. And I finally came with those stairs. So thank you for that. We got to continue to love one another. And Ms. Crowder, I'm glad you got that program. Anything I can do, let me know to come and help with those third graders. Because we need to get our kids on one accord. We got to do it. And we got to sacrifice, we got to get volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Seats.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good
Everybody
evening.
that's here. Yeah. I really don't have much to say tonight. Just thank all board members for being here. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for being our fearless leader. We appreciate you
Thank you.
so much. Yeah, I think that's about it. We're good. Thank you.
No, that stays on tape.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were taking.
Vice President.
I don't really have much to say. I started off early this morning in our discipline committee meeting. And then we had this meeting on the same day, so I'm kind of tired right now. So I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank the board for the work that you continue to do. Mr. Bradley, thank you for absorbing that tribal knowledge of board learning. I think you're getting addicted, and that's good because you have 3 more years,
Yeah.
right? And so
And he's
it's
young.
needed. Yeah. And I mean,
He's young.
so the community needs your leadership.
Yes.
I think one thing, that tutoring thing is awesome. I think I'm so happy for that. I think there's 5 other points that we need as well, right? And when the superintendent starts, we'll go over that, because one of those points is the PSAT. So if we can finagle money through that, right? Because these are the things that will take us down, right? Not only the 3rd grade, but the PSAT for our 11th graders. There's a lot of issues that need to be resolved where we can get our students on par, right? Because the state, MDE, they're looking for the data, right? And so the data has to come up. So even if it's 3% reading in 3rd grade, next year you go up to 5%, you're showing the data, right? And so that's what we need. So, but we need it on all avenues, especially for the high schoolers too.
Yeah, well, right now they have, I said I wasn't gonna say anything. 4 schools involved. They had Fairplain East, Deck, Hall, and ACA, but maybe we can talk to them and tell them which buildings, maybe take Deck out for the high school.
That's it, because I mean, we
'Cause
gotta
Deck
reach that
is-
goal.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Please put my name on the list for.
What? Oh, I said, yeah.
I'll stop in 2 for 30 minutes. That's not much.
Oh.
All right, so may I have a motion to close tonight's meeting?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Watson,
Support.
supported by Mr. Matthew. Bradley, can we please call the roll? Because we got a basketball game to go to.
Oh, well, I gotta do something.
President Taylor,
Yes.
Vice President Crowder, yes. Lou Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Wiley C.
Yes.
Matthew Bradley,
Yes.
and Darren Watson.
Yes.
All right, meeting is adjourned at 6:53.
Okay, now.
Is it hard?